Grant Cardone is a popular real estate investor on YouTube who often shows off his $20 million condo, his luxury cars, and of course, his brand new $55 million jet as inspiration. He always preaches about the power of real estate and leverage, and looking at his lifestyle, it has certainly paid off for him. But this brings up the question, how much does Grant Cardone actually make? Well, starting off, Grant Cardone is a CEO of Cardone Enterprises, which is basically an umbrella company for 5 sub-companies. These companies include Cardone Training Technologies, Cardone University, Cardone Acquisitions, Cardone Capital, and Grant Cardone TV Network. As of 2017, each of these companies have revenue exceeding $100 million, but the exact figures are unknown as these are private companies. However, this does tell us that his total annual revenue is well over $500 million, upwards of $1 billion. Considering this, let's place his annual revenue at $750 million. But how much of this is actually profit? Well, many of Grant's businesses are high cash flow businesses with very low operational expenses. For example, Cardone University and Cardone Training Technologies are selling information, so they don't need to invest in manufacturing plants, materials, factory workers, research and development, and so on and so forth like a traditional business would. They simply need to develop a program, advertise it, and sell it. Now, I am not saying that that's easy by any means, but evidently, it does need much less cash to run and has high profit margins. Generally, such businesses can have net profit margins as high as 90% when done individually. But in Grant's case, he has hundreds of employees to pay, large venues to rent, and international travel expenses. As a result, his net income margin is nowhere near this amount. Despite this, his margins should still be quite high at 20 to 40%. Let's conservatively place these two businesses at 30% net income. The same, however, cannot be said for his real estate businesses, which include Cardone Capital and Cardone Acquisitions. Real estate is a great investment as it is quite passive, but it is a cash-intensive business. Of course, real estate enthusiasts like Meet Kevin would strongly advocate that you don't need much cash in hand to invest in real estate. And this is true. You can get investment partners, loans, crowdfunding. There's plenty of ways to buy real estate without fronting the cost. But even with the best wedge deals on the market, you cannot net profit anywhere near 30% consistently year after year like Grant's informational businesses. Furthermore, such numbers are even harder to achieve with larger properties with hundreds of units like Grant buys. As a result, Grant's net income on his real estate businesses are likely closer to 10%. This would include cash flow, small wedge deals, equity growth, and depreciation. And that leaves Grant Cardone TV. This is again an informational business, but the difference between this and Cardone University is that they don't charge several $100s per customer. On top of this, there are much more recurring costs. They have to pay editors, cameramen, audio guys, and much more every single episode they make. It's not like a course where you make it once, update it here and there, and continue to get revenue. Furthermore, most of the content on Grant Cardone TV is free, and the only revenue source is ad revenue and merchandise sales. As a result, for Grant Cardone TV, there is much less revenue coming in and much more expenses in comparison to Grant's other informational products. TV networks generally have profit margins of 10 to 15%. For instance, Fox had a net profit margin of 15% and CBS had a net profit margin of 11.89% in the last quarter of 2019. Of course, Grant doesn't have nearly as many expenses as these giants as his productions proportionally cost much less. And he doesn't have to deal with TV providers and whatnot. So let's put Grant Cardone TV at a 15% net profit margin. Considering this, Cardone Enterprises has an overall net profit margin of about 20% as the 5 businesses are relatively equal in terms of revenue. If anything, Cardone Training Technologies is the biggest out of the 5 and has one of the highest profit margins in the group. So this should pull the net profit margin of Cardone Enterprises above 20% even conservatively. With revenue of $750 million, Cardone Enterprises should generate $150 million in net profit per year. But Grant doesn't get all of this money as he doesn't own all of the company, because if he did, his net worth would be a lot higher. In an interview with Omar about 3 years ago, Grant claimed that his net worth is $540 million.
What's a more accurate figure?
540.
540. I love it. Running
Yeah.
tally?
Yeah. Look at it every day.
All of these revenue numbers are also about 2 years old, so we'll assume that when these revenue figures were taken, his net worth was $540 million. Let's also say that $40 million of this, or a little less than 10%, is not invested in Cardone Enterprises. With $150 million in profit, Cardone Enterprises would be worth $2.475 billion on average. This is assuming that Cardone Enterprises is valued using their average price to earnings ratio of 16.5. This would mean that Grant Cardone owns about 20% of Cardone Enterprises, meaning that his net income 2 to 3 years ago was about $30 million conservatively. The number was probably closer to $50 million and up to $70 million using lower PE ratios and less conservative earnings estimates. Over the past few years, Grant Cardone has seen exponential growth in many of his businesses, such as Cardone Capital, as crowdfunding efforts have skyrocketed. In fact, Cardone Capital's assets under management have nearly doubled in just the past year, from $890 million at the start of 2019 to $1.7 billion today. Similarly, his following on YouTube has over quadrupled over the past 3 years. This means that more people are buying his courses, more people are investing in Cardone Capital, and more people are attending his sales conferences. As a result, it's likely that the net income for Cardone Enterprises is now well over double what it was a few years ago. This would mean that Grant Cardone now makes about $100 million a year, plus or minus $20 million. Do you guys agree? Make sure to comment that down below. Also, if you guys thought this video provided a good analysis of Grant's income, then make sure to drop a like and consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.